the type to beat up the bad guy when things turn ugly.
My name's Waffles, and I'm a government whistleblower turned political commentator, and this is the last 24 hours in the news. Today is September 4th, 2025. It is 8:05 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Here are the top news highlights for the past 24 hours. Washington, D.C. sues the Trump administration over Guard deployment to D.C. D.C. Attorney General filed suit saying the deployment violated the Home Rule Act and Posse Comitatus limits. Case assigned to Judge Gia M. Cobb. On September 4th, 2025, today, the D.C. Attorney General Brian Schwalb filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration regarding the deployment of National Guard troops in Washington, D.C. Status of the case, deployment location. The lawsuit is specifically about the deployment of National Guard troops to Washington, D.C. The deployment is described by the D.C. Attorney General as an involuntary military occupation to address crime. Troops from several states have also been sent to D.C. The lawsuit argues that the deployment violates the District of Columbia Home Rule Act, which grants the city limited self-governance, and the Posse Comitatus Act, a federal law that generally prohibits the use of military for domestic law enforcement. Case status, the lawsuit was filed on September 4th today and has been assigned to Judge Gia M. Cobb. The case is in its initial stages, and there have been no definitive rulings or stays reported as of the current time. Appeals court ruling on Trump tariffs, administration to seek Supreme Court review. A federal appeals court found most reciprocal tariffs exceeded statutory authority but left them temporarily in place. The White House said it will ask the Supreme Court for expedited review. Yes, the Trump administration has already filed its petition with the Supreme Court. The filing was made on Wednesday, September 3rd, 2025. Here's what to expect with the request for an expedited review. Urgency. The administration is arguing that the case has immense economic and foreign policy implications. They are concerned that the appeals court's ruling, which found most of the tariffs illegal, casts a pall of uncertainty over ongoing trade negotiations. The administration has asked the Supreme Court to act on the petition by September 10th, with a suggested timeline for oral arguments to be heard in early November. This is an extremely rapid pace for the Supreme Court. So, in other words, in plain and simple language, you will continue to pay higher prices on goods and services via the tariffs, at minimum through November. I mean, it was until October, because for some reason the court felt the need to provide Trump with an opportunity to appeal. So we will not be seeing any relief from the tariffs anytime soon. That's what that means, and at least not until November, but most likely way past November. And if there is any chance that the president might be engaging in espionage or acts of war against the United States, if he is deliberately trying to attack the country, hypothetically speaking, then that will drag us into winter and make people much more resource scarce during the winter. So I just wanted to point that out, and I certainly hope that the President of the United States is not doing those kinds of things. One can only speculate, so I'm just expressing thoughts, opinions, hypothetical situations, just in case they might be useful, in case the situation gets worse. I don't know. So yeah, that's what's going on with the tariffs, though. You will not be seeing any financial relief from the tariffs because the president, in my opinion, is being a dickwad and fucking us all around. And I think he is doing it on purpose. And I think he's doing it to be cruel towards the American people. And I can only question what his intentions are in doing such a thing. I have my own reasons for thinking that. I do think that some of this looks strategic, and I think he's colluding with the foreign nations in BRICS to do deliberate harm to the United States financially. And if that is what he is doing, then this is what I would expect. So You know, I mean, what are we going to do? Just suddenly pop up a bunch of factories after having an asshole shut the entire fucking economy off? How are we supposed to manufacture these goods if we're going to be isolated? You don't just shut things off. You ease into change. You make plans, and then you make change. Okay, America wants to be isolationist, which is not a good idea. Kim Jong-un is isolationist, and people there are very poor and having very serious health issues. So I would like to point that out. But even if you're trying to transition from being globally economically active, you don't just fucking shut down everything and make it so that people are not trading into the country. That is what we are seeing with these mail holds. I just got a notice from one of my distributors saying, yeah, don't expect packages if people are purchasing your products. Don't expect to be able to do business very easily. If somebody from the EU tries to purchase from me, and this is because of the president. So, you know, we have this stall of incoming packages that I've been reporting on. And if you're not paying attention, I'm multi-platform. I'm on YouTube. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Rumble. I'm on it all. Okay? Link in bio. I am not happy about this crap with the tariffs. And I think most people are not. I think most people realize that it's bad for the economy just to make it so that nobody can get supplies. Other than that, I mean, if we're going to manufacture stuff, then we need manufacturing facilities. Probably should have built the manufacturing facilities and figured out where we're going to get resources from instead of just cutting off access to the resources. So my argument against this bullshit that Trump is doing with the tariffs is that there's no fucking plan other than to bankrupt America. I mean, you know, when will it stop? Okay? I would like to live my life. I'd like to afford a place to live, afford groceries, and be left the fuck alone. That's how I feel, and what I would like as an American citizen. I ain't even trying to play this mega fucking game, dude. I feel like what I'm witnessing is what a foreign adversary with a tactical military plan would do to the country. That's what I feel that I am witnessing based on my observations. I'm just expressing my opinion here using my First Amendment right of freedom of speech and freedom of the press. You know, I mean, if that's not what's happening, maybe the president ought to consider acting more in the interest of the people, because we can all clearly see that that is not what is happening. We are not retarded. Okay? I don't like the situation. I'm very displeased with the situation. I just would like it. I would like to see that the situation does not continue to worsen. I would like the situation to stop getting worse. That is what I would like to see, and I would like to go about my daily life and be left the fuck alone. Status quo. Back to this case. The appeals court's ruling did not immediately strike down the tariffs. The court stayed its decision so it let the things stay the way that they are. It put it as stay to give Trump time to file an appeal so that we can get dicked around as the American people and not be able to afford shit, because that's what Trump wants for America. I mean, I'm just expressing my thoughts and my opinions. That's what it looks like to me. So now that I have vented steam about foreign relations and these frickin' tariffs, we have good news. There's been a lot of wins in the courts. So, you know, the situation we're collectively going through is stressful. One can only speculate what the future is going to hold, because none of us are able to plan a future right now, because we have a president that is absolutely out of control. And if you ask me, unfit, if that is the situation that all of us are looking like, why is this motherfucker making everything impossible and ruining our lives? That's a really good question, because the whole nation is narrowed in on that right now. Everybody's lives have been interrupted. Rudely. So, but we still have our wins. I'm concerned about the fact that our lives are being interrupted, and I'm very worried when it will stop. Why is it happening? Alright, on with the news. D.C. Circuit orders reinstatement of fired FTC Commissioner Rebecca Slaughter. That's a relief. That's the Federal Trade Commission. That's the money people. That's the people in charge of the money. The FTC, Federal Trade Commission, is a federal agency that protects consumers. It protects us, Americans, you and me, from deceptive and unfair business practices and promotes fair competition in the market by preventing anti-competitive mergers and practices. An FTC commissioner is one of 5 leaders nominated by the president and confirmed by the Senate, who govern the agency. Commissioners serve a 7-year term and play a crucial role in directing the FTC's mission through law enforcement, education, research, and policy development to ensure fair and competitive economy. They hold people accountable for engaging in financial crimes. So the D.C. Circuit has demanded the reinstatement of Rebecca Slaughter. An appeals panel reversed Commissioner Slaughter's removal, a legal check on executive removal power over independent agencies. Oh shit, I have oil hot on this. Donald Trump says he will send National Guard troops to Chicago. That was on the 2nd, so 2 days ago. Trump told reporters, "We're going in on Chicago." Local leaders have vowed legal challenges and non-cooperation. White House later clarified there were no immediate movements announced. Federal judge blocked comparable troop use in California under posse comitatus arguments. A federal judge ruled that prior deployments in Los Angeles violated federal limits on military law enforcement roles. Injunctions and appeals are expected. Again, as I just explained with the tariffs, appeals means the stuff is going to get drug out, and it's going to take a long time. Washington, D.C. lawsuit adds to a series of legal fights over domestic troop deployments. D.C.'s filing highlights continuing immediate legal resistance to domestic and military police deployments in U.S. cities. Reporting in the last several days, documents threatened or planned Guard military support to cities, judicial limits on troop use, California injunction, and rapid legal pushback, but no verified reporting of widespread military combat operations against U.S. civilians in the last 24 hours. So there's movement. We're winning cases. Like there was a case in California that just got completed that the use of the National Guard in Los Angeles was legal. But Trump still has room to appeal and make our lives a living hell by continuing to be a nuisance, backing up the courts, making everything take forever. With the California-Los Angeles case, Chicago, Trump is threatening to send people to Chicago. He's threatening to release the National Guard upon the people of Chicago, and their governor is getting pissed off. And a case was just filed today in regards to Trump's deployment of the National Guard in D.C. as illegal. So the case was just filed for that. So that's where we are with this National Guard stuff. Policy shifts. Pentagon authorized up to 600 military lawyers, JAGS, to act as temporary immigration judges. Defense Secretary approved detailing JAG officers to help clear the immigration court backlogs, a major procedural shift that raises due process concerns among civil liberties groups. So I'm out here blowing the whistle on what is happening at our federal agencies, and part of it is that our courts are getting backed up, and our federal agencies are getting backed up to an extent that there are millions of Americans and millions of people including the immigration population, which has the worst backlogs of our entire governmental system, which is in my book, is how I open my book up, which is free to download on Barnes & Noble. It is also available for free on my website. Yeah, this is the whole reason why I believe that this thing that Donald Trump is doing is a coup. Because it certainly looks to me like they purposefully created extensive backlogs to prevent people from getting justice. So, what is going on with this clearing of the backlog by the Judge Advocate General, the JAG? It is a measure intended to increase the number of judges available to hear and decide cases. And I'm not saying that this is good because Trump has been bringing in a bunch of loyalists, so if there's going to be an army of judges, what does that mean? What is going to happen with these judges? I don't even know. The term clear the backlog means to process the cases that have piled up over time and not to dismiss them without a hearing. So that's progress in some way, but is it good progress? Because who are these judges? Role of the JAG officers. These military lawyers would serve as temporary immigration judges. The Defense Department has approved sending up to 600 military and civilian attorneys to the Justice Department for this purpose. They would preside over hearings and issue decisions, much like civilian immigration judges. The backlog. Immigration courts have a backlog of millions of cases. It is very backed up, and Trump has been, in my opinion, based on what I'm seeing, attacking these people after creating a crisis with the backlogs because he was calling Congress to make sure that we didn't get funding to these programs which created these backlogs. From my own perspective, as a whistleblower, it certainly appears to me that Donald Trump purposefully and deliberately created these backlogs that are in question so that he could get away with demonizing the immigrant population and campaigning on them and then continuing to do very scary things to them. Immigration law is complex and specialized. Critics argue that JAG officers, whose primary expertise is in military justice, may not have the necessary training to handle these cases fairly, even after a short training course. I think they could. Immigration judges are part of the Justice Department, which is part of the executive branch. This differs from federal judges who have lifetime appointments. The concern is that military lawyers who are subject to a chain of command might be influenced by administration policies or pressure, compromising their impartiality and due process for immigrants. The Justice Department has recently loosened the criteria for temporary immigration judges, allowing any licensed attorney to be appointed, whereas previously they needed to be a former judge or have significant experience in immigration law. This change paved the way for the use of military lawyers, adding to the concerns about the integrity of the process. In summary, the deployment of JAG officers is a strategy to accelerate case processing in immigration courts. While the stated goal is to clear the backlog, it has prompted significant debate about whether this approach will protect due process rights of those whose cases are being adjudicated. And another update we have for today, drug makers expand U.S. investment as trade uncertainty mounts. We discussed this yesterday. It's like the Johnson & Johnson and somebody else. We just covered a hold up. Here are the major pharmaceutical and biotech companies that have announced significant U.S. investment plans. Amgen, A-M-G-E-N, announced a $600 million investment in New Science Innovation Center at its global headquarters in Thousand Oaks, California. AstraZeneca announced plans to invest $50 billion in the U.S. by 2030, including a new multi-billion-dollar manufacturing facility. Johnson & Johnson committed to a $55 billion investment in its U.S. manufacturing R&D technology over the next 4 years. Roche, R-O-C-H-E, and its Genentech subsidiary announced a $50 billion investment in U.S.-based manufacturing and R&D over the next 5 years. This includes a new $700 million manufacturing facility in Holly Springs, North Carolina. Novartis investing $23 billion over 5 years in the U.S.-based infrastructure, including new and expanded manufacturing and R&D facilities. AbbVie committed to investing more than $10 billion in the U.S. over the next decade to expand manufacturing capabilities. Eli Lilly announced plans to build 4 new manufacturing sites in the U.S., which brings the total U.S. capital expansion commitments to over $50 billion since 2020. Gilead, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, Sciences announced an additional $11 billion in capital and operational investments in the U.S., supplementing an already planned spend of $21 billion in the U.S. Regeneron Pharmaceuticals has a $3 billion agreement with Fujifilm Diosynth Biotechnologies to produce drugs at a manufacturing facility in North Carolina. Sanofi intends to invest at least $20 billion in the U.S. through 2030 in R&D and manufacturing. I actually know a whistleblower that has a lawsuit against Sanofi. Now, I'm very concerned that these are people who are in bed with Trump, and I'm very concerned that they're planning something sinister. I don't think that there's good intentions with it. The last time I checked, I think that was on yesterday's report or the day before. You know, some of these investors, because I'm pretty sure Johnson & Johnson is one of them, these are people who have invested in Trump. They spent money on perverting our political campaign. What we're seeing right now is a man who's got our military marching around, mobilized against the people, a man that has made repeated threats towards the American people, a man that has made it so none of us can afford to eat or live, very abruptly, and is just acting like a freaking terrorist. If you ask me, that is my opinion based on my observations. I'm expressing my right, my freedom of speech. I'm using it. So, you know, yes, we have what looks like a good handful of pharmaceutical companies investing. Why is that, though? Because it also looks like the president is bankrupting the United States in favor of BRICS. So then America's going to be broke. And it looks like they're lining us up to be pill manufacturers. And Donald Trump's trying to cut loose our EPA and our CDC and everything. So pharmaceutical companies do have a history of and continue to be a source of environmental pollution. The pollution comes from various sources throughout the life cycle of a drug, from manufacturing to disposal. So you know, I mean, people who got pharmaceuticals showing up in their wastewater, you know, right now. So that's something that has already been happening. So they're going to just throw a bunch of pharmaceutical manufacturing facilities in the United States. Why is that happening? I don't know. But, yeah, manufacturing waste, this is a major source of pollution, particularly in regions with less stringent environmental regulations. During the production of active pharmaceutical ingredients, APIs, significant amounts of chemical waste can be released into the environment. There have been numerous reports of high levels of antibiotics and other drugs found in waterways near manufacturing plants in countries like India, who is currently our primary drug manufacturer, and China. Imagine that. Okay. So BRICS is cleaning up their pollution by sending it here, leading to serious ecological problems and contributing to the global threat of antibiotic resistance. Consumer use and disposal, a large portion of pharmaceuticals that enter the environment do so after being used by humans and animals. Many drugs are not fully metabolized and are excreted in urine and feces, entering wastewater treatment systems. These systems are often not equipped effectively to filter out these complex chemical compounds. The drugs then end up in the rivers, lakes, and even drinking water sources. Improper disposal, such as flushing unused medication down the toilet, also contributes to this problem. Ecological impact. The presence of pharmaceuticals in the environment, even at low concentrations, can have significant and sometimes unexpected effects on wildlife. Examples include hormone disruption. Estrogen from birth control pills can feminize male fish, making them gay. antibiotic resistance, trans fish, antibiotic resistance. The continuous presence of antibiotics in waterways creates a selective pressure that promotes the development of antibiotic-resistant bacteria, which poses a serious threat to human health. Direct toxicity. Some drugs can be directly toxic to aquatic organisms, leading to changes in behavior, reproduction, and even death. Other environmental impacts beyond chemical pollution would include packaging, the use of plastics and other non-biodegradable materials in drug packaging, and carbon emissions. The energy-intense processes have involved in manufacturing and the global supply chain result in substantial CO2 emissions. Make America China. If you would like some broader context as to why these things matter and why these are things that you should be paying attention to, it's because we have had global catastrophic and also local catastrophic consequences from these kinds of pollution. Okay? So if you want to go on YouTube and you can type in zombie alligators. And there's a documentary that ought to give you a good idea of what chemical pollution can do to the nature, the wildlife, and waterways. And there's a documentary about forever chemicals. I'm going to pull it up. This is an excellent documentary. So yeah, anyways, long story short, there's serious consequences for localized pollution events, and especially because the United States really seems to suck at oversight. This is something that people should be concerned about. There was a chemical spill that is in that documentary that, as a result of that, a company that was using chemicals that it wasn't supposed to be using, that was dumping them into the waterways. The contamination of the local lakes, which I believe this may have been in Michigan, but I haven't watched that for a while, so I don't know. Can't remember. Not sure if my memory is accurate. But it caused a lot of child cancer in the area. A lot of people lost their kids. Kids died. So I'm a little bit concerned that we're suddenly shutting down the entire economy, shifting things around, and we're just going to prop up a crap ton of pharmaceutical manufacturing facilities all of a sudden. I find that kind of strange. And I find it concerning that we're just going to massively do this change to our infrastructure that includes adding a crap ton of pharmaceutical manufacturing facilities. Because this is not something that's being publicly discussed. Why is the president doing all this random ass shit and not, communicating his plans? And a lot of the things that he's doing certainly appear to me like he is trying to harm the people. So I'm very concerned about anything these motherfuckers do. Okay? But that's what is going on. Those are the reasons to be concerned about it. I hope that is informative enough. Alright, so now I'm going to put on my commentator hat and we're going to kind of switch lanes a little bit and stop and take a moment to really talk and think about this crap that's going on with the pharmaceutical introduction of manufacturing facilities. Alright, so I've got this essay that I published on Barnes & Noble a while ago. I just went ahead and posted that to my Substack, so it is now readable for free. That was a paper that I wrote for college, and what I found out when I was writing that paper was that the opioid crisis, during the time that a lot of this started, what happened was pharmaceutical companies were going around and bribing medical practitioners to force these drugs upon people. For anybody who's not already aware, I wrote a short autobiography in regards to how the Trump administration's actions are affecting me. And there is some stuff from my past, that I almost lost my life because of those kinds of practices. I'm pretty sure that's what happened. So, I'm definitely a bit leery of the pharmaceutical industry. Other than that, the fish over here are telling me that they're not too keen on the idea of any potential waterway pollution. So these are the kinds of things that I think we need to be paying attention to if this is what they're going to be doing. We need to be concerned about environmental pollution. We need to be concerned about environmental pollution. We need to be concerned about bribery scandals with our medical care. You know, companies engaging in fraud tend to prey upon people when they're in a vulnerable situation and scared and making rapid decisions without thinking very clearly. That's one of the situations in which people committing fraud are targeting persons. Yeah, we could wind up with regional contaminations and a bunch of people on drugs that they don't need. It could turn into a whole massive science experiment. The fact that this is not something that's even being discussed and that he's just making these decisions has me incredibly concerned, especially while he's slashing our regulatory agencies. And it just makes me wonder why are they doing that? And I can only assume that it's with sinister intent. And so then with that being said, this is what I would be concerned about with them trying to introduce a massive slew of pharmaceutical manufacturing facilities all of a sudden in the United States and try to make us all work in that. I'm not saying it's a bad thing to have pharma be accessible. But the questions of this, the behavior of this administration is highly questionable. So then I'm coming from this perspective when looking at this issue. On with the news. Wall Street fell on tariff legal uncertainty. Markets reacted. Major indexes closed lower after the tariff ruling and legal noise. Investors moved towards safe havens and bond yields shifted. Verizon nationwide outage. This has been going on for a few days. A major outage occurred on August 30th to 31st, and service has been largely restored. That was earlier this week, in case you're not already aware of the issue for anybody who may be having problems with service with Verizon. No new national public health emergency declarations in the past 24 hours. Ongoing recall and outbreak investigations. Multi-state salmonella egg contamination remains active. Initial notices were posted around August 27th. It is an ongoing item, so we're just putting that reminder out there. Turkey criticizes U.S. visa revocations for Palestinian officials ahead of UNGA. Turkish President, oh God, here we go again, Erdogan. President Erdogan called on the U.S. to reverse visa revocations for Palestinian leaders. That's Turkish President Erdogan. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Increasing diplomatic tensions ahead of the UN General Assembly. The reason why that matters is because the people in Palestine are dealing with human rights violations, war crimes, and people in the UN are I think they're trying to usher them into the UN right now. So Palestine's status, they're not a full member of the United Nations. It holds a status of a non-member observer state. Non-member observer state status. On November 2012, the UN General Assembly voted to upgrade Palestine's status from an observer entity to a non-member observer state. This allows Palestine to participate in UN General Assembly sessions and other proceedings, but does not grant it voting rights. So they're trying to, essentially what's going on is the United States is trying to push Palestine out of this UN General Assembly hearing. The UN headquarters is in New York. So I don't know if that's where they're planning on having this hearing. Hold on. Yes, this year's UN General Assembly, UNGA 80, is being held in New York City, which is its permanent location. The main events, including the high-level general debate, take place at the United Nations headquarters in New York. The 80th session of the UN General Assembly will officially open Tuesday, September 9th, 2025. The high-level general debate, which is the period when world leaders deliver their speeches, is scheduled to begin Tuesday, September 23rd, 2025. Now, if we go back to the news, we can see that the United States just revoked the visas of the representatives for Palestine, so they won't be able to attend. And the president of Turkey is pissed. And he said something about it. Ongoing legal actions against the Trump administration moved in the last few days. Tariff litigation, appeals court decisions have undercut the administration's tariff authority. The administration said it will seek an expedited Supreme Court review. Yeah, expedited, do it fucking now, dude. Fuck you guys. That's my opinion. I'm just expressing my opinion. Fuck you guys is my opinion. Domestic troop use litigation, federal court rulings, and the new D.C. lawsuit are actively constraining and contesting plans to guard active duty forces for domestic law enforcement. FTC reinstatement. D.C. Circuit ordered temporary reinstatement for Commissioner Slaughter, so it's temporary. Another judicial check on the administration's approach to independent agencies. Pentagon JAG's a memo authorizing JAG details to immigration courts is likely to spur legal challenges on jurisdiction and due process. All right, what is going on with this FTC lady? Real quick, in regards to the FTC Commissioner Slaughter, that is her name. A temporary reinstatement means that the court's order to put Commissioner Slaughter back in her position is not the final word on the matter. It's a provisional measure while the underlying legal battle continues to play out. So at least she's staying there. It's an interim order. The D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals did not issue a final ruling on the legality of the president's action. Instead, it denied the administration's request for a stay. A stay would have put the lower court's reinstatement order on hold while the government's appeal was being considered. By denying the stay, the appeals court allowed the lower court's order that Slaughter must be reinstated to take effect immediately. The legal fight is not over. The administration is continuing its legal challenge. The case is likely to be appealed to a higher level, potentially to the full D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, process known as an en banc review, or more likely to the Supreme Court. The ultimate goal of the administration is to have the firing deemed legal. It is a win for now for Commissioner Slaughter and those who support her position. I do. The temporary reinstatement is a significant victory. It means she can return to her duties at the Federal Trade Commission immediately and participate in the agency's work, including crucial votes on rules and enforcement actions. This is a critical development because it could shift the balance of power on the 5-member commission. The risk of reversal, the temporary nature of the reinstatement means that if the administration is successful in its appeal, a higher court could reverse the lower court's decision and remove her from her position once again. This creates a degree of legal and professional uncertainty for Commissioner Slaughter. The court's order is a declaration that, based on the current law and precedent, the administration's legal argument is weak, and therefore it is not entitled to have the reinstatement order paused. However, it does not permanently resolve the constitutional question at heart of the case, whether the president has the authority to fire the heads of independent agencies like the FTC without cause. The final determination will come from a later ruling by a higher court. Today, the market closed with the S&P 500 at a high up approximately 0.8%, so it regained what it just lost, I think. I mean, we just had a market fall, so I don't see any of this as gains. These look like fairly neutral numbers in comparison to the amount that's been lost on the stock market this week. Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 0.8%, gaining about 350 points. Nasdaq Composite led the gains, climbing around 1%, supported by strength in tech and housing stocks. Russell 2000 Small Cap Index added 1.3%. Broader enthusiasm stemmed from softer than expected job market data, which raised expectations for potential near-term rate cuts by the Fed. No, the fact that it's losing and then gaining the exact amount that it's losing, it just makes me think that there's market manipulation going on. Notable movers: T. Rowe Price surged 5.8%, buoyed by a $1 billion stock buyback agreement with Goldman Sachs. Real quick, let's see if I have a visual on the stock market.
Percent. AP News.
Shit. Whoa. Okay, I do not have a visual snapshot today. Russell 2000 small cap index added 1.3%. Broader enthusiasm stemmed from a softer than expected job market data, which raised expectations of a potential near-term rate cut by the Fed. Notable maneuvers: T. Rowe Price surged 5.8%, buoyed by a $1 billion stock buyback agreement with Goldman Sachs. T. Rowe Price is a global asset management firm founded in 1937 by Thomas Rowe Price Jr. The company provides a wide range of investment products and services, including mutual funds and ETFs. This would be similar for like Berkshire Hathaway and BlackRock. They're also an investment firm. Okay, so yeah, anyways, the T. Rowe Price is a global asset management firm founded in 1937 by Thomas Rowe Price Jr. The company provides a wide range of investment products and services. BlackRock is the world's largest asset management firm, providing investment management, risk management, and technology services and institutions to institutions and individuals globally. And then Berkshire Hathaway is an American multinational conglomerate holding company led by Warren Buffett, known best for its diverse portfolio subsidiaries and public stock investments in sectors like insurance, railroads, energy, manufacturing, and retail. And I think these are the people who are screwing everything up right now. Part of the people who are screwing everything up right now. That is my personal opinion. So I just find it interesting that there is stuff going on with one of these firms with a significant movement in the stock market all of a sudden. The asset manager T. Rowe Price saw a significant stock price increase after announcing a strategic collaboration where Goldman Sachs will invest up to $1 billion to purchase its shares. This move is a major vote of confidence from Goldman Sachs that signals a strong financial future and new growth opportunities in making America China. I'm just wondering, I'm just speculating. So here's a breakdown of what this deal means for both companies. T. Rowe Price boosted stock price. The news of a major investment and partnership created increased demand for T. Rowe Price stock, causing its price to jump. The market sees it as a positive sign that a major institution like Goldman Sachs believes the company is undervalued and poised for future success. Strategic business collaboration beyond just a financial transaction. The agreement is a partnership to develop new public and private market investment products for retirement and wealth management clients. Enhanced client offerings. The deal allows T. Rowe Price to tap into Goldman Sachs' expertise in private market assets like private equity and credit, expanding its offerings for its clients, particularly retirement savers. For Goldman Sachs' significant investment, Goldman Sachs is acquiring up to 3.5% of T. Rowe Price's stock through open market purchases, which could make it one of the company's largest shareholders. Access to T. Rowe's clients. This deal gives Goldman Sachs access to T. Rowe Price's massive base of retail and retirement-focused clients, a major market opportunity that Goldman previously lacked direct access to. Leverage expertise. By combining T. Rowe Price's retail distribution network with its own private market products, Goldman can efficiently scale its offerings without building a new client-facing platform from scratch. The broader context of the deal: this type of collaboration is part of a larger trend in the asset management industry. Traditional firms like T. Rowe Price are seeking new revenue streams by offering access to alternative or private market assets, which have historically been limited to wealthy and institutional investors. By partnering with private market specialists like Goldman Sachs, they can attract new clients and remain competitive. I don't trust it. I think this is shady. There's something shady going on here. Also, I'm noticing that the market is like dipping and then leveling out and then dipping and just regaining those gains. And it seems to happen every couple of days. And I think that's very weird. And if our large investment firms are making moves, then I'm concerned about it, because it looked like Warren Buffett was in bed with the Trump administration at the beginning of all this. So I'm expressing my concern that I believe there's potential market manipulation going on, and who I believe may be involved, but I'm just, speculating based on what I'm seeing. I'm using my First Amendment right to freedom of speech and freedom of the press to express myself freely as an American citizen. Amazon is also seeing significant gains, around 4.3%, on news that JetBlue will deploy its Project Kuiper satellite broadband system. Sorry, that is Kuiper. Salesforce fell 4.9% after issuing softer than expected guidance despite solid Q2 earnings. I'm going to put my commentator hat back on. So what I'm concerned about then, what is happening in my mind right now after having to stop and think for a moment, based on my observations, what if people were to divest from these holding companies and asset managers? I'm just wondering, because to me, like, all this crazy stuff is happening, and I see the head figure from Coca-Cola running around with Donald Trump and stuff, and then all of a sudden we got Warren Buffett sitting there product placing Coca-Cola while he is speaking, announcing that he's going to be resigning. So then, yes, a lot of people like to talk about BlackRock, which is one of these asset managers. And the asset management companies did invest in Donald Trump and his campaign, and so it's something that we ought to consider. Because when we have stock portfolios making the decisions for how society is going to be run, we have problems. We don't have a fair market, and we have irrational decisions being made in order to profit individuals who don't have the best interest of the public in mind. So if we would like to improve the ethics of the civilization that we are living in, it's something that could be considered by the people. But if that were to happen, it would mean a stock market crash, most likely. If people just suddenly started pulling out all of their money from these firms. But as far as, there's a lot of public discussion of where we do and do not have control, and that is something that is within the people's power. I'm not endorsing this, I'm just speculating. I'm a political commentator, and I'm stating my observations, using my First Amendment right to freedom of speech and freedom of the press as an American citizen, as it is my First Amendment right to do so. Back to the news. U.S. trade deficit surged 32.5% in July, widening to $78.3 billion, driven by a spike in industrial and capital goods imports, including over $12.5 billion in industrial supplies and a record $96.2 billion in capital goods. If there's stock markets, if the asset management, portfolio management companies are involved in market manipulation surrounding all of this, then the tariffs would give them a massive benefit if Donald Trump is dancing around their product providers and creating a situation where those who could possibly, and I'm just speculating, possibly be colluding to manipulate the market if such a thing were to happen, would have insider information as to where they can go to make money and how to do so and how to maintain stable, while the rest of the businesses, just like mine, are dealing with chaos and unpredictability, making it difficult to maintain stable business operations. The sharp trade imbalance could significantly subtract from quarter 3 GDP. Imports substantially outpaced exports, which rose only 0.3%. Labor market shows renewed strain. Jobless claims rose by 8,000 last week to 237,000. While ADP-based private payroll growth slowed to just 54,000 in August, well below expectations. My bad. I'm like, whoa, it rose from 8,000. No, it increased 8,000. There was an 8,000 increase from last week in jobless claims. Wall Street reacts. Employers await job data. Major stock indexes held steady today amid signs of labor market cooling, with Salesforce slipping 8% and slight gains in Amazon and Meta helping buoy the S&P 500 and NASDAQ. Markets are placing a nearly 100% probability on a rate cut. In September, investor focus shifts to upcoming non-farm payroll numbers. U.S. job openings fell by 176,000 in July to 7.18 million, marking the first time since the pandemic that unemployed individuals outnumbered open positions. This signals further labor slackening and supports the case for a rate cut. Gold, not really. It does not support for a rate cut because nobody's got money. There's no jobs. And so then if you cut the rates, then people are going to take out loans. Rate cuts are for loans, and those people don't have the money to pay back the loans. Why is my news bullshit reporting that to me?
What?
That is not a good thing. Okay? Yes, it's a thing, but it's not a good thing, and it supports the case that propaganda media is pushing for a rate cut. And that is the only case, a case that's based on fiction. It supports the case for a rate cut that is a case for a rate cut that provides short-term relief at the cost of long-term gain. It means that a bunch of people will fucking go broke and everything will turn to chaos if we do a rate cut. So the case for a rate cut is a case of make you feel like things are okay right now while everything crashes later in the future and gets much, much worse. Gold gains amid Fed independence concerns. Goldman Sachs projects that gold could reach up to $5,000 per ounce if market fears of weakened Federal Reserve independence persist. Gold prices have risen 35% this year amid economic uncertainty. Investor trust in monetary policy leadership is influencing a rush into safe haven assets like gold. People are bailing out of the financial market and turning to gold because of the shit that Trump and his fucking buddies are doing, manipulating the markets and making life a living fucking nightmare by making irrational, ineffective decisions that hurt the vast majority at the benefit of a small few. The U.S. administration filed a petition for expedited Supreme Court review of a lower court ruling that found much of the Trump tariff policy is unlawful. A Supreme Court ruling could determine the fate of sweeping tariffs enacted earlier this year. We're not going to know until November. We're not even going to have the slightest idea. The fight starts again in November. Everything is on pause and we just have to wait and suffer with these stupid tariffs. And there will be no movement again until November. And it is because Donald Trump has appealed the court's decision. And remember, kids, just because the S&P 500 or Dow Jones might be performing does not mean that wages are growing, jobs are secure, inflation is under control, or that people are thriving. And here is the upcoming hazardous weather outlook for the next few days. Midwest and Ohio Valley on Friday, strong thunderstorms are expected to develop across Kentucky, Ohio, and surrounding states. These storms could bring damaging winds and some hail. Stay weather aware if you're in the region. Tennessee Valley and Central Appalachians Friday also looks stormy here. A line of storms could sweep through with potential for gusty winds and isolated hail. Mid-Atlantic and Northeast by Saturday, the storm threat shifts east while risk is lower. Scattered storms may still bring brief, strong winds from Pennsylvania through New Jersey and up into New England. South and southeast, no major severe outbreaks are expected, but typical late summer thunderstorms remain possible, especially in the afternoons. West and southwest generally quiet on the severe weather front. Hot and dry conditions continue and drought concerns remain in parts of the interior west. Northwest and northern Rockies, no major storm systems expected, though cooler temperatures and breezy conditions could develop later in the weekend. Overall, the main story is Friday's severe storm potential in the Ohio and Tennessee valleys and central Appalachians, shifting into the mid-Atlantic on Saturday. After that, we'll be watching for pockets of heavy rain and possible flooding into early next week. And here are the international news highlights for the past 24 hours. China's massive military parade showcases anti-West bloc, BLOC. In Beijing, China held its largest ever military parade marking the 80th anniversary of World War II's end, with President Xi Jinping flanked by Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un. This powerful display sent a clear message of a unity among authoritarian states and highlighted China's growing geopolitical influence. Xi also announced new initiatives on energy cooperation and economic development with Russia and India. What I don't like is that Putin refers to the Ukrainians as Nazis in order to dehumanize them so that people feel comfortable with him engaging in warfare against them. And Elon Musk was doing what appeared to be a Nazi salute. And some people choose to speculate it. I don't. I think it was a Nazi salute. I am free to express my thoughts and opinions based on my observations, and that's what I feel I observed. And so then, if calling people Nazis is being used as a reason to attack people, then I have concern about Russia and Kim Jong-un and China's president gathering together to have World War II celebration parties, because I'm worried that it makes the United States look really bad right now. And if on the world stage, people are concerned about a Nazi threat, it makes the United States look really bad right now, and could be a cause for, if there is an attack from those parties, could justify said attack. I'm just speculating. I'm expressing my thoughts and my opinions based on my observations. Pakistan's devastating monsoon floods displaced nearly 2 million. Over the past day, severe floods in Pakistan's eastern Punjab province forced 500,000 more people to flee, bringing the total displaced to around 1.8 million since last month. Dam releases and monsoon rains have inundated thousands of villages. Military efforts are underway, and the UK pledged 3.4 million in aid. BYD India hits 10,000 electric vehicle deliveries. BYD India has announced it delivered over 10,000 electric vehicles in the country, a major milestone indicating accelerating consumer adoption of EV models like the Salian 7, Atto 3, and E-Max 7.2, growing demand and a key step towards India's sustainable transport future. I've been talking for over an hour. Wikipedia stands firm as the internet's last neutral haven. In an era of polarized media and rampant misinformation, Wikipedia remains one of the few reliable neutral portals online. Its volunteer editorial process, built around transparency and consensus, persists despite political, legal, and ideological pressures, from disinformation campaigns to AI threats. Lisbon funicular crash claims at least 16 lives. A beloved historic funicular in Lisbon derailed. What is a funicular? What is a funicular? Funicular. I'm assuming it's some sort of train. It's like a trolley. It's a cable railway system that transports people and goods up and down steep slopes by using two counterbalanced cars attached to a single cable. It's a funicular. This is a funicular. We're looking at funiculars on Google for educational purposes in order to gain an understanding of what a funicular is. That is a funicular. Funicular. A historic funicular in, I don't know if I'm saying that right, funicular in Lisbon derailed, killing at least 16 people, including foreigners, and injuring many more. The incident has exposed safety concerns around aging infrastructure in tourist-heavy areas, prompting urgent investigations. Again, this is in Lisbon. Lisbon is on the very far west. It's on the far west of all the countries where the EU is. I apologize for my lack of ability to pronounce that word correctly and getting very hung up on it. The 16 deaths is a tragic incident, and by no means am I trying to make light of the situation. It's very sad that people lost their lives due to the parts that go to the funicular being aged and malfunctioning. But yeah, that's what a funicular is. It's a rail car, kind of, that goes on cables that goes up slopes. Afghanistan suffered a third destructive earthquake near its southeastern border, adding to the human toll from recent tremors. The death toll now has climbed past 2,200, deepening the humanitarian crisis and straining rescue operations. We'll be back with more. Until then, stay safe out there.
So the Olympics is great, and Johnny for the others, you know, the World Cup, Johnny is the head of it. We had our top people, Wasserman. They all came in on the Olympics, and then I saw Johnny. And we got the World Cup too. And you know, it's only because they rigged the election that I'll be your president representing you there. You know, I got both of them. I got the Olympics and I got the World Cup. And I said, you know, it's too bad. One was in 2026 and the other was in 2028. And I said, I won't be there. I won't be your president. But then they rigged the election and now we won. So I'm going to be your president for the Olympics and for the World Cup. So Johnny, thank you for the World Cup. And everybody, thank you for the Olympics. We're going to have a great time.
Hey guys, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment to my videos. And also, don't forget to check out my shop where you could get this awesome Real Patriots Punch Nazis t-shirt. America, fuck yeah! And if you go to the link tree in my bio on most platforms, it's got links to everything, all of my stuff. You can find my shop there. I'm on eBay. You can also get this cool Exterminate MAGA sticker, because MAGA's fucking cockroaches. And fuck MAGA, abolish MAGA, fuck you MAGA.